that, though, Matt, let's dive in. The Jets have announced the following hires to their defensive coaching staff: Colin Bauer, defensive assistant; Ronald Booker, defensive assistant slash Nichols coach; Ben Bolin, linebackers coach; Ryan Slowick, safeties coach. So this, in addition to some of the other reported hires like Brian Duker as the DC, Carl Dunbar as the defensive line coach. The Jets defensive staff is now officially complete. Give us the initial reaction to the hires they made official earlier today.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know a ton about these guys, but specifically with Bowling, the linebackers coach, being able to pluck from the Texans staff feels like a wise decision when you look at all the success that they've had with D'Amico there, and how good that defense has been. And I think for all the fair criticisms of Aaron Glenn, by the way, I think you look at the staff now after the fact, it might have been a little bit of an ass backwards way to get there, but I think it ends up being an okay staff going into 2026, and there's definitely some upside here.
So here are the brief backgrounds we can give you on each of the hires. So Bolin, 32, you heard Matt mention it. He's been on the Texans defensive staff the past 5 seasons after a 4-year run as a defensive assistant. He was promoted to assistant linebackers coach in 2025. He got his coaching start at Campbell University as a defensive assistant slash safeties coach in 2016 through 2018 before transitioning to a wide receivers coach and offensive recruiting coordinator in 2019 and 2020. Bolin played wide receiver at Campbell. So interesting how he's now a linebacker coach and he had an upbringing as a wide receiver. Now let's talk about Slowick. Most recently with the Dolphins, Slowick worked closely with Duker as a DB coach slash passing game specialist in 2024 through 2025. He also held the titles of senior defensive assistant in 2022 and outside linebackers coach in 2023. He is the brother of Bobby Slowick, who is now the offensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. So the Slowick name carries some weight in the NFL. Their dad was a longtime coach in the league. So there's some info on him. Staying with some of the other hires that we know, we have some information here on Booker. So this is now Ronald Booker, who again is the defensive assistant slash Nichols coach. Booker just wrapped up his 5th year in coaching with the Cardinals. His 3rd as a defensive quality control coach after working 2 years as a defensive assistant. He spent 2 years with Arizona as a Bill Walsh coaching fellow from 2020 through 2021 prior to being hired full-time. And then Bauer comes to the Jets from the UFL, where he was the Michigan Panthers defensive coordinator and D-line coach the last 2 years. He was a defensive line coach all by himself in 2023. Prior to that, he worked on the college level at Towson State from 2018 through 2022. So you have a wide variety of different backgrounds here with the 4 specific assistants they made official today. I think ultimately here's what you need to know about the Jets defensive staff. Starts with Aaron Glenn. He hires Duker, but all signs point to Glenn being the play caller of the defense. Frank Reich was hired as the essential head coach of the offense. So Matt, knowing what we know now, your thoughts on Glenn's defensive staff and him taking over play calling?
Yeah, I like how you kind of just phrased it there. It is a lot of it's going to rely on Aaron Glenn, and the defensive coordinator that they brought in is not going to be the one calling plays. It is going to be Aaron Glenn. So we can't, or you're not going to hear those quotes of, oh, it's Steve's defense when talking about Steve Wilkes from a year ago. There's no more excuses, right? Like, it's really on him and the rest of his staff to get this thing turned around and going in a proper direction. They were a very poor defense in 2025, and clearly they are going to be able to, with all the cap space and draft picks that they have, add players to that defense. But now they got to coach them up and get the most out of them. I think you're muted.
I was muted. Glenn is ultimately going to sink or swim based on some of the talent that they add, no doubt. But they got to be better coached. They got to have a better feel for what they're doing. The Jets defense was bad last year. It wasn't only because of a lack of talent in some areas. When they were trying to win with Sauce and Quinnen still on this team, they were 0-7 with those guys. They were awful. There were guys running wide open. There were communication breakdowns, and what felt like every other play. I think Glenn's got to go out there and he's got to simplify things if these guys can't comprehend some of the schematics. He's got to bring in guys who are just either smarter or guys that could just do one thing well and have them, to quote Belichick, right, do their job, because there were just way too many coverage busts and breakdowns last year. It wasn't all just a talent issue with the Jets defense a season ago.
No, absolutely not. The scheme was terrible. On top of it being a talent issue, the scheme was not very good. And, clearly they're looking to make those changes. And, Aaron Glenn's going to take over now. And, this is something that's been talked about a lot, but I'm very curious with the addition of Carl Dunbar on this staff and just some of the rumblings if the Jets will be switching to a 3-4 defense. And, I know in the modern NFL, like you don't play a ton in base 3-4 or 4-3, but that is going to be or could potentially be a philosophy change and might, change some of their personnel decisions going into this offseason as well.
Comments, questions, super chats, cut the line. Matt O'Leary is our guest. We'll get to your calls coming up. Here are the new raffle prizes for Friday's raffle. That's tomorrow, people. Make sure you enter for your chance to win an autographed Nick Mangold jersey, an autographed Darrelle Revis helmet, and a signed jersey by each member of the New York Sack Exchange. So if you want in, gift the membership, or just become a member all on your own. One Pawn Style did exactly that. He's the first to join today. He is in the Asmaniac raffle for one. Let's freaking go. Hit it, Fireman Ed.
And here we go. Let's go. Let's go.
By the way, I have a slew of new Fireman Ed funny drops from the Vice TV Monday Night Miracle doc that Ed was featured in. So anyone who gifts today, be on the lookout for what I have in store. I also want to share the giveaway that we'll have across both shows today. In honor of talking draft and the combine being upon us, we're going to give away a signed Armand Membu helmet at the end of the second stream today. So if you can't watch the second stream, you better enter during the first stream. We'll combine the entries to give you a chance to win a signed Armand Membu helmet at the end of our shows today. With that, let's continue the conversation now. Offensive staff, Matt. First time I've had you on since Frank Reich was hired and the rest of the staff. Give us your thoughts on specifically Reich now being the OC.
Yeah, to me, it looks like the Jets are going a completely different direction on the offensive side of the ball, having Tanner Engstrand and a relatively young coaching staff. Now, I think with the addition of Frank Reich and, as well as the quarterback coach hire that they made this week, that there's a few more veterans who, have been in their roles for long periods of time. Both, Frank Reich has been an OC for a long time in this league and has called plays. The quarterback coach has had offensive coordinator stints, number one, but also a lot of stints as a quarterback coach too. But there's also a mix of youth, right? Like Seth Ryan's in there as a 31-year-old who worked under Ben Johnson and helped implement some of the trick plays that they ran. So I think what they are hoping for is to blend the two together. Now, if it works, is going to be another story, right? Like, I don't know if it's going to be a mix of, you have all these experienced guys and then the young innovative guys and it clicks and it works together, or if it's the league is maybe passed some of these older guys by and there's just not enough experience for those young guys and it doesn't work. But point being is they're taking a very different approach this year, and at least you could point to some areas on the staff and say they've been in these roles before and done it.
DT, I'm going to put up the rankings here. The full article could be viewed on foxsports.com. But Ralph Vacchiano, longtime NFL reporter, put together his top 10 NFL coaches that are on the hot seat going into 2026. And number one is the head coach of the NYJ, Aaron Glenn. We'll go from 10 to 1. Number 10, Brian Schottenheimer of the Cowboys. Number 9, Matt LaFleur of the Packers. Number 8, Dan Quinn of the Commanders. Number 7, Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings. Number 6, Shane Steichen of the Colts. Number 5, Zach Taylor of the Bengals. Number 4, Dave Canales of the Panthers. Number 3, Todd Bowles of the Bucks. Number 2, Nick Sirianni of the Eagles. And at number 1, the head coach of your New York Jets, the great Aaron Glenn.
Just don't let go of the rope.
DT, your initial reaction to the list is what?
Well, we finally are at the top of some kind of power rankings with the Jets, right? Like, this is never the one you want to be on top of, but it's very fitting. Obviously, it feels like he's been the betting favorite since the end of the season, since probably week 16 of last season, to be the first coach fired, or at least to have the hottest seat. Now, looking at the rest of this list, I think I love Nick Sirianni at 2. Put the pressure on Philadelphia. What's going on over there is super weird. just a ton of weird vibes coming out of there. So Sirianni being 2 is crazy. I don't blame, 3 or 4 for being on this list. The NFC South is so winnable that you can always just like have a new coach and just like have the advantage. Dan Quinn needs to be higher on this list, in my opinion. Like I would probably put Dan Quinn at 2 and then Sirianni at 3 and like just kind of go down from there. And then there's a guy on here, and I'll let you guess who it is. This guy does not deserve to be on the list whatsoever. And I'm a truther for his brother, and he does not deserve to be on this list whatsoever.
Matt LaFleur?
Yeah, what I don't get it. Like if they did it this year, he would have been the best candidate to be a head coach immediately, and the Packers also would have been the most attractive job. So like it always made sense to try to bring Matt LaFleur back. It doesn't make sense to ever let go of somebody like that, at least in my opinion. I know they have their shortcomings in the playoffs, but I mean, you can't really argue with like 4 through 7 on this list. And like, Jake, what if I told you Aaron Glenn got fired and numbers 4, 5, 6, and 7 were candidates to be the Jets head coach in 2027? Like you probably wouldn't hate it, right?
No, not at all. And again, we'll get to Glenn in a moment because I got some thoughts on this, but
Sure.
Specifically with the other names on the list, I think it's ridiculous for Dave Canales to be on here. He just took the Panthers to the playoffs and they had below average quarterback play for most of the year. I think Canales is a really good coach. He overachieved, I thought, with that team. I mean, the Panthers were thought to be the worst team in football 2 years ago. No one wants that job, right? Well, he got them to the playoffs by the end of his second year. So I think Canales should not be on this list. Zach Taylor should be higher, but the reason why he's probably not is because the owner's cheap, but I believe his contract runs out. So maybe they wouldn't technically fire him. He would just not be renewed. Steichen's an interesting one. I don't know if he'd be 6 if I really sat down and went through this. And I think Dan Quinn should be a lot higher, right? Dan Quinn moves on from Cliff Kingsbury. They have the great year 1 together with Jaden Daniels. This year, they were a disaster. I could easily see Dan Quinn, if they have a bad year, being canned, and they'd bring in a new coach to try and maximize the window they would have with Jaden Daniels on his rookie deal. Shoddy being at 10. I mean, Jerry's usually pretty patient with coaches. Again, it's an interesting list because Glenn aside, and they got it right at number 1, there's no doubt. But Glenn aside, you had 10 turnovers or 10 franchises turnover coaches this past year. And then the previous cycle, you had a bunch of new head coaches. So, you're looking at a league where over half the league as a coach in year 1 or year 2. So almost by default, you have really good coaches like Kevin O'Connell on this list and Matt LaFleur, who just got an extension on this list, which feels crazy.
Yeah, and truthfully, that the list could have stopped at 8. LaFleur and Schottenheimer, like you pointed it out. I feel like those are not necessarily going to like be candidates to actually be on a hot seat. Again, Matt just got the extension. But yeah, I guess what you said about Canales, kind of like the counter argument would be because there's always so much turnover at the head coaching position. Obviously, we think there's going to be less than the 10 openings in 2027 or going into 2027, but that gives me more reason where if like Canales is like just so, even if he is performing above expectations for what the Carolina Panthers are, if one of those hot offensive names comes available and they think, oh, we can, the NFC South is so winnable right now with the Falcons, the Bucks, the Panthers, and I don't know why I'm blanking on the 4th team. But the Saints, thank you. Like that is the most winnable division in football right now. So like 9-8 or 8-9 got them into the playoffs this year and they performed over expectation. But I do think that he should be on the list because they have such an easier path to the playoffs by winning the South. And that's why the Bucks are on the list too. And Todd Bowles, there was a reason for him to be fired at the end of this past season because of how the way things ended in Tampa Bay. And their coaching staff has kind of gotten a lot of turnover as well. So the list ultimately makes sense 1 through 8 with the names that are on it. But yeah, if I sat down and made up my own, the only thing that I'd probably agree with Ralph is number 1 is Aaron Glenn.
And that's the thing, right? Let's talk about Glenn specifically. Is anyone surprised that Aaron Glenn is number 1 on this list? Again, a lot of people around the league thought Aaron Glenn was going to be fired. Other than Hugh Jackson, you can't find a coach who fired both his coordinators after year 1 over the last 20-something years. So Glenn is definitely on the hot seat. I understand that, oh, well, Jake, they're rebuilding. Look at all the trades they made and now all the future picks. But that actually hurts Aaron Glenn's argument for staying a year from now if they don't show real improvement, because the job would be attractive for the next coach to come in and pair that guy up with the top quarterback in the draft a year from now. So Glenn should be number 1. I mean, they started 0-7 when they were trying to win. There's 3 wins in year 1 or against 3 backup quarterbacks. There's no clear plan for what the foundation of the team is supposed to be after he said year 1 was all about laying the foundation. Well, you had a 50% staff turnover and 2 new coordinators on each side of the ball. So look, there were people that were shocked Glenn wasn't fired after year one. I did a radio interview in Baltimore talking about John Harbaugh last week at the Super Bowl. And they asked me about both New York teams. And they said, who do you think the Jets are going to hire as their head coach? I go, well, they kept Aaron Glenn. And they just assumed that he was just going to be gone next year. So it's just, that's the feeling outside of maybe the bubble we live in as Jet fans. And I think there's a lot of Jet fans who think that Glenn's not going to even make it through this upcoming year. So he should be number one on this list. And that's why getting off to a good start, if you're Aaron Glenn, it is imperative, man. You heard Harrison Phillips say on this show that the Jets have had this culture of losing. When you don't win, it's that here we go again. Well, that's why you got to win some games early next year so Glenn can maybe get some buy-in that what he's doing, these changes he made to the staff, the coordinator hires, him taking over the defense, et cetera, are actually working. Getting off to a good start in 2026 is imperative if you're Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that Harrison came out and said that at Radio Row. And he said it a couple times, right? I know he said it with you, but he also said it with Richie. And I remember doing a video on my channel week 4. I think that was the first Miami game, right? That was, I think, week 4, right after we got back from Tampa Bay. I did a video because somebody put out an article. I believe it was Samini, maybe it was somebody else on the beat, but it literally said, in quotes, "Here we go again," as a quote from the locker room. And I was like, this needs to go. This has to be wiped out of the building. And I'm not saying AG is not trying to do that, but when it comes to this list in the hot seat, yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's a no-brainer that he's the number one on the hot seat, considering everything leading up to the end of last season and going into this season. You fire, Steve Wilkes, which we knew was coming, obviously, week 15. And then the whole thing with Tanner Engstrand is just weird. And perhaps you get into an upgrade with Frank Reich slightly, right? Maybe it's a net neutral and it's kind of the same. The only thing I'll say is Frank Reich can at least adapt mid-game, where I felt like Tanner Engstrand was never able to really adapt his game plan on the fly. So it's going to be tough. And I don't disagree with him being number one. I don't disagree with anybody that says he should be gone or should have been gone. I'd be okay with it. But at the end of the day, if they're going to start the season with him, please just finish it with him, unless there is a guy not in football right now, perhaps a Gruden or somebody like that who says, I will take this job tomorrow if you fire Aaron Glenn in October.
Jets, Jets. I love Fireman Ed too.
John Gruden, huh? Rex Ryan, Seth's already on the staff now.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying. Somebody outside of football that could immediately come in and work. That would be the pivot, not okay, we're gonna promote Frank Reich as the interim. I wouldn't want to do that. So just ride out the whole season with Aaron Glenn, for better or worse, right? And to most people's point, hopefully they don't get a quarterback so that the new coach can get the rookie quarterback, and then you have a rookie head coach and quarterback growing together like everybody seems to want.
I actually finally got some goddamn hope, something that I can grasp onto and believe in. And I don't care what the chat's saying about Derek Carr and his arm. Derek Carr to us would be a revelation to me. I mean, I just feel like he's a thrower of the football, which we haven't had. Even if you want to go back and talk, we have Musgrave and you want to link him to his 15 and 16 MVP seasons, and then he got hurt and he never really rebounded from that. But even when he was with the Saints and he was playing injured in his last season before he called it quits, he had the Saints at 5-5 with 15 touchdowns and 5 picks. We would take that any day. Let's revert back to last year when I was crying for us to keep Rodgers over Fields. It was more just for the simple fact that he can throw the football and he's a veteran who knows what to do. And we probably would have had a much better season statistically, and it wouldn't have been as sad if we kept, not saying that we would have done anything crazy with Rodgers, but it would have been much better. And Carr, I can see a vision, we never get this type of luck, but if Carr is healthy, he's a player, man. I think he's the all-time leader for the Raiders in fourth quarter comebacks. He's a player who you can actually build a 3-year window that you can give us some hope that you have a guy that if he wants to come back, that means that he thinks he can do it. He's not coming back for a paycheck. So if he thinks he's healthy, and he goes through the medicals, and this is a good situation with the only place that he could really probably start. Who's these other places like Miami and Cleveland and Minnesota if they
Minnesota?
wanted to, act like McCarthy's not a, I really feel like this is something that if we get Carr could suck a person like me in who just likes a thrower of the football. You know that Frank Reich wants someone who's a taller guy and can process. He's not bringing in Kyler Murray. I don't want a hope and a dream on Malik Willis. That's not our type of hope and dream that's going to work. I don't want any of these running quarterbacks. I want a thrower of the football. And Derek Carr is a veteran who's shown us he can play at an MVP level or close to it when he's done it before. So I'm all in on Carr, man.
I've never seen someone love Derek Carr the way you love Derek Carr, Bonesy.
It's just because we have no hope right now. Like given what Aaron Glenn put himself into with the Tanner Angstrand situation, and I'm pretty satisfied with how he rebounded with this offensive coaching staff. I am. I think it's the best, probably the closest thing that he could have done to see it as not like a complete failure. While I like Tanner, I did. He was a young offensive guy, but I don't know, man. I definitely, if we got Derek Carr, I guarantee we'd give him like a 3-year something that we'd all be mad about the money, but who gives a shit? We have cap space. We have no hope. We have no direction. We have an offensive line, and that's about it. So let's go in with a guy who if he wants to come back, he's 34. He'll be 35 to start the season. He gives me hope, man. He does. If we get Derek Carr, I will believe a little more. And actually, I could just see the vision. Last year with Fields, you want to get a guy with potential. You don't want to get a guy like Rodgers, or you know what you're getting. No, that's not. We get the worst version of every quarterback. So if we could just get, the worst version of Derek Carr, which was like him on the Saints, I'll take it, man. Again, through 10 games, 15 touchdowns and 5 picks. Both of you guys would sign up for that. I don't care what you say.
No, it's just got to be if the shoulder checks out. That's my only concern, is where the shoulder's at. That's it. Agreed.
But I just feel like if he wants to do this, I don't see it being like let me see how it responds, and looking for a paycheck type thing. No, he's coming to have a second, a third shot. I guess the Saints was his second shot, but I don't know. I see the lines lining up with the connections, and when you heard Derek Carr say, in his little interview with his brother on their pod about how he feels about Aaron Glenn and stuff, I just like throwers of the football. That's all I can say. And I think Derek Carr would give us stability and a perfect bridge. If not lightning in a bottle, he'll give us the best bridge option we're going to find. Jacoby Brissett, sure. But these are guys that we have to trade for, even though we'd have to probably trade for Derek Carr. But if he came back, the Saints might release him if they want to be good Samaritans, What are you going to get for Derek Carr? You have to give up.
What about Cousins?
Jacoby and Derek Carr.
What about Cousins?
I would take Cousins, but at least Derek Carr is a little more mobile. Kirk Cousins is very immobile. At least Derek Carr is not like, he'll take off. So if you ask me, I would prefer Carr over Cousins. I think if Carr is healthy, he'd have more left at this point in his career. But I would take Cousins as well as, a great bridge quarterback. But Carr has me a little more excited because I think Carr, I think he's a solid player when he's healthy.
Bonesy, let me ask you this. You like Derek Carr. But the question is Derek Carr an Aaron Glenn QB?
What do you look for in a quarterback? Like, what's an Aaron Glenn quarterback?
A winner.
Well, he's definitely a Bill Musgrave quarterback. So
this is true.
Derek Carr, for those curious, his career record as a starter over 11 years in the NFL is 77-92.
Again, but that's on the Raiders, though. And the Raiders are almost as pitiful as us. And he's never had a true offensive line. And we have a great offensive line. And we have his boys with Musgrave. He played his best football of his career. That's probably a thing that he likes, that entices him to come to us. I'm just hoping more that he sees our situation as a chance to, gain some respect and hope back in his career and give him some momentum and give us some hope. Because if you told me we're signing Malik Willis, I'm actually upset. I want nothing to do with Malik Willis. I don't want these guys who's played 6 games under a legitimate coach that's what they need, and that's going to be our guy. But you know what, though? I feel like Frank Reich is looking through the quarterback's eyes like me. He's not looking for a runner. He's not looking for a run-first guy. He wants a thrower of the football. He's not going after Anthony Richardson, that people are going to be like, oh, let's go for the lightning in the bottle. We didn't just learn that going after lightning in the bottle with Justin Fields and the guy can't throw the ball. Like, no, let's get someone who can throw the football. That's what I want to see. I want to see someone throw the football.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's why he's the champ. Mr. Bonesy. Derek Carr was retired last year.
Yes. No, none of it makes sense. And like I said, I wasn't about it in 2023. And that picture in the restaurant with Martini Nate, like it made me so mad that they were even thinking about it. So I hope they don't think about it again. Like, how many times do we have to try to make Derek Carr a thing before it's just not going to work?
Derek Carr, another Jet quarterback that'd be rocking, at least in this Photoshop here, the number 7.
Same as Fields. That you'll probably get the similar reaction from the fan base after week 6.
You have a Justin Fields jersey, DT, a signed Fields jersey. Maybe you could get it to, you can make someone change it to a Carr jersey or something. I don't know.
Could you imagine if they did that? Then you have a Justin Fields signed Carr jersey. I don't know. I guess I just have to say I'm 0 for 2 on jerseys on this show. Just sign Justin Fields in a white Sauce Gardner jersey.
Super chat from the big fella.
The Jet fans getting a little crazy.
Let me tell you, the big fella's crazy. He's in the Armand Membu signed helmet raffle for 5. Let's go, big fella. Put me in the raffle. DT, Derek Carr or Will Levis? I agree with hospital ball Carr. Hell no. All right. Big fella's question. Derek Carr or will I put mayo in my coffee, Levis?
Oh boy, big fella. I just said it about Gardner Minshew. I guess I'll have to double down and say Will Levis, and I'd absolutely hate it. But again, I'd rather Will Levis in the quarterback room with like a Ty Simpson than Derek Carr. I don't know. I just can't. Nothing about Derek Carr makes me happy. So give me Jake Asman for quarterback over Derek Carr.
Derek Carr or Diego Pavia?
Derek Carr. Derek Carr.
You love Pavia. Come on.
No, because then we have literally Jake Asman back there in terms of measurables. So it's like it's not conducive for success. Either way, we're marching for Arch. Sell the shirts. I'm on the bandwagon.
Will you buy? All right, how about this? Will you buy a shirt, March for Arch, from jakeasman.com if the Jets move is to sign Derek Carr?
Yeah, you got me doing a lot this offseason. I got to squeeze lemon juice in my eye if we get Mekhi Lemon. Now I have to buy a March for Arch shirt. I guess we're doing it.
We're doing it, baby.